Coming up on this episode,
we know details of where the politics is moving, who is going up, who is going down, and for what reason they are going up and going down. And then you spill some beans out of that will entice people, because we definitely know more than most of them. And they were like, whoa. And then because basically you're telling me I know the secrets of the innermost circle of the political circles Guanxi happening. And then if you want to move your career ahead, you want to get business done, you want to build some Guanxi with certain people, you want to know those sources, the secret of those sources. So let's say you have a traffic accident, you kill somebody. You could be spending 10 years in jail, you could be spending 5 years in jail, or this accident could have never happened. And that's what China is. I mean, there is a law, and you kill somebody, there is something going to happen. But it could be anywhere around this spectrum.
If you know someone.
If you know the right Guanxi, right? And so people say China is about faith and Guanxi. The reason it's all about Guanxi is because there is no law, yet you can go to as a last resort, the last recourse. And so what can you depend on? The only thing you can depend on, human-to-human relationship in China, we call Guanxi. That's the only. So we always are judging on how much Guanxi I build with you, what's the depth of the Guanxi, how I can use the Guanxi, and how the Guanxi can apply in what situation. So we are always making judgment on that.
So that was some snippets of what you can expect from today's guest, who is a singularly amazing fella. His name is Desmond Shum, and before he fled his country of birth out of fear of being disappeared, he was among the top brass of China's elite. He was on the inside of the political apparatus, along with his wife, a multi-billionaire who would later go on to be disappeared, and together they built their empire off the backs of being cozy with the most powerful elites right up the tippy top of the CCP mountainscape. These relationships, coupled with an incredible ambition and nous for business, led Desmond and his former wife to multiple deals that were not only extremely lucrative, but also an interesting case study into the tide lifting all boats phenomenon that was the booming China in the early 2000s. This podcast was recorded in person in London in June, and some of the topics you can expect to hear about include the following. A little bit about Desmond's upbringing, which includes relative poverty, abuse, as well as some extremely valuable lessons that he learned. The role of status and vanity in doing business in China, and as well, we speculate maybe the rest of the world. The concept of Guanxi, top to bottom, which is a Chinese word that describes the cultivating of relationships, the securing of political capital, and the brutal non-human dealings behind relationships. This is potentially the most interesting part of the podcast for me. Desmond offers a lot of commentary on modern China and as well the CCP. He explains a bit about some of the biggest financial windfalls that him and his wife accrued in their career, but then as well how the rich Chinese hide their money, which was of particular interest to me and should be of particular interest to any fellow Australians listening to this podcast, because spoilers, shitloads of Chinese capital flight goes into our property market and distorts the price for the locals. And then finally, we discuss Jack Ma, Desmond's wife's disappearance, the current state of affairs with him, with China, with his wife, with the entire corruption of it all, and then just lots and lots of more little tidbits in there as well. And so again, I feel like this is a high watermark of the podcast so far. Desmond has not done many podcasts, and boy, does he have an extremely fascinating story. So I feel very, very thankful and as well privileged that he agreed to do it with me. And that's why I flew over to London in the first place. You've already listened to Ed Conway and Tim Marshall. That was from the same trip, but really we were there for Desmond. And so again, thank you to you, Desmond, for being so generous with your time and your answers. And to you, my dear, dear listener, how about 5 stars on Spotify? Pump it north of 200, 5 stars on Apple, pump it north of 50 or wherever we're at there. Probably not that many, but it's really encouraging to see literally every single day more people find this podcast and then download multiple episodes in the library. So let's keep the ball rolling, gain more momentum, pump your good juice into the algorithm. You're legends. And with absolutely no further ado, here is Desmond Shum. Your family suffered a fall down the ladder to one of the lowest castes under Maoism. Could you help me understand how your early years were formative to you?
I mean, you mean how does that shape me as a person?
Yes.
Oh, you got deep questions.
I'm sorry to open up with such a deep one, but
I think it's first of all, I think it's I talk about in the book that it really affects my father. I think it has a lasting impact on him, like throughout his life, and that in the tension also he transfers some of the tension to me. And so I talk about that, also in the book. So that I think there's multiple things. I think one, I didn't really feel like as a child I'm personally impacted, sort of being the sort of the bottom of the society, and obviously I don't understand enough anyway. But at that age, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I think in looking back, then you can say, oh, okay, so we were living in a sort of like a row house in Shanghai, and then our family used to own the entire house, which is 3 floors, but then you got another family shovel to the top floor, another family shovel on the ground floor, and all of a sudden you got all the space taken away, right? And then you got my parents, obviously, at the time I don't understand, but subsequently my parents told me, despite whatever academic achievement they may have, they would never get any education better than a teacher's college. They're just not going to get a university because of their sort of ranking in their society. And that's the best they can do. So both my parents are secondary school teachers.
You said it affected your father quite particularly. There's lots of bad scenes in the book of him being abusive to you. Was this like a frustration about life that brought it out?
Yeah, I mean, personally, obviously, it's actually, sometimes I didn't even understand until like very recently. I mean, I used to have until I came to Oxford, UK about 2015, 2016. Even when I first came, until probably 4 or 5 years ago, I still can have bad dream and wake up in the middle of night and something between me and my father, and then I was really upset and kept me up and sleep. And it's just I come on, it's like that's like 40 some years ago, and somehow it still have an impact on my mind. And but it seems like it have gone away now.
How has it affected you as a father?
It changed me tremendously. So I am I just sent my son to school this morning. So we are especially close. I mean, and I give him a lot of I'm more expressive than I think than I guess maybe many parents. And then because I never have any of that when I was growing up. So, as a result, me and my son are extremely close. He's 14 years old. He kissed me goodbye every morning when the school bus came.
Nice. And is your father still alive?
Yeah, but he's in the middle of a dementia. So
okay. How long has he been in dementia?
It's like that kind of disease. It's like a slope of deterioration. So it has been going on for. I would say the first symptom comes out 5, 6 years ago, and just start steadily getting worse and worse, right?
Did you ever have a moment to reconcile with him?
It's not a topic they can even touch on. Not
Right.
even my mom. Like
Right.
I mean, I'm like everything is in the book, and much of it is out in the open. My mom have read the book, and all her friends have read the book,
Wow.
but my mom never say a thing about it. Those episodes. All he said, all she have said is, I think the biggest compliment she could have gave was, she said, "Oh, my friend told me that people usually publish, meanwhile people usually can publish after they're dead, and then you publish it, relatively young. That my friend told me that's a great achievement. That's the compliment she gave."
There is a scene from the book just came to my mind, which stood out to me, because in a culture where there is such a strong division between what men do and what women do, especially when you were growing up, I remember that your father would be beating you, and the neighbor would intervene, and she was a female.
Yeah, I think it was more embarrassment, maybe, and also, I think that kind of behavior is a hit of the moment. If somebody come to intervene, it's sort of put you to a stop, and then all of a sudden maybe you realize maybe I'm going too far, right? Yeah, I think that sort of plays in.
So in addition to the abuse from your father, there is as well you moving to Hong Kong as a young child, and then as well being a total outsider from the language to the culture. But then as well, you're an unusually tall person, so you would have stand out there. What about these other experiences away from your family? How did they affect you and shape you?
Yeah, Hong Kong was as I talk about in the book, and my parents never didn't prepare me for I'm actually leaving Shanghai. I'm permanently. They would say, "Oh, you're going to a vacation, whatever. You're going on a short trip," and then so I wasn't prepared for oh, I'm leaving Shanghai for good. I don't know why they did that, but. It was a total shocker, going to Hong Kong. I think the first thing it came to, today, sitting now here, and also doing the book, recording those episodes. I think the first thing is individuality. It's really different. In China, obviously the term at the time and was comrades, right? So it's like brothers in arms, and it's not like everything is in a group. The people to people's relationship are very, very different. And then China, Hong Kong, people seems like I am one individual. How you relate to me is between you and me as a person to person, instead of we are part of this group and this kind of stuff. So that's something I need to learn to deal with. And then also Hong Kong, despite everything, China at that time in the 70s is a very homogeneous society. It's just like everybody is poor. It's especially for kids, then you don't see, you don't get the social hierarchy thing. You just see, well, everybody dressed up pretty much the same. Everybody seems like have similar food, and but in Hong Kong, and immediately you see the disparity, right? The people riding Mercedes Benz, and you barely you're trying to save a few cents, not taking the bus, and instead of try to walk, right? It's just the disparity is obviously in your eye, and that's that definitely it's a something. It's a shocker, and obviously I think it gave me it shaped me in a way that I want to get out of this. It's give me this sort of the burn inside, the fire in the belly to I need to get out of this. I need to move up, right? That's the same. And it's a continuous thing, because we never was too much better from the bottom, right? I mean, my parents start climbing into the middle class, but it's probably, I would say, it's probably the bottom half, the middle class, right?
Mm. So the first time you noticed any type of wealth disparity was when you were in Hong Kong.
Oh yeah, obviously.
And could you maybe then give us a sense for Maoist China you were, raised until you went to Hong Kong in? Everybody was poor. There wasn't a ruling elite that you would ever see, or there was just no, I don't know, imports from other countries to even flex that type of wealth? What did it look like?
I guess we were, my parents are secondary teacher. We are not, socially where we're ranking the bottom of society. We were not like, we don't have relatives who are like bureaucrats or high power bureaucrats, right? I mean, the possible wealth I don't know, even wealth, we don't even know what, I mean, at that age in that society, I don't even know what wealth is. The curiosity I may see was my school is at that time I think there's only 2 hotels in entire Shanghai allow foreigners to come in and to stay, and that's not many foreigners coming in those days anyway. But so one of them was very close to my primary school. And my primary school, I talk about in the book, we always perform when those foreign visitors come. They obviously, it's a different color of clothing, everything is different about, but we don't see them as having wealth or having something we don't have. It's just like curiosity, this curios coming into our life from time to time, right?
And your parents fled China to Hong Kong, right? And it was to escape the politics of China?
I think it's just looking for opportunity.
Okay.
Right?
So they recognized that there was no way to go up here. Let's try Hong Kong.
Oh, yeah, they definitely have no way to go up anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. There was an interesting comment that you made in the book, which was that you were very self-conscious and sensitive to vanity.
Yeah.
Does this come from always having physically stood out as being just taller than what is otherwise a short population?
Well, I wouldn't say population. Well, I mean, I don't think Shanghai is particularly short, but as a lot of people say, oh, you're the tallest Chinese I've seen. I'm like 6'5", and I always tell them, there's Yao Ming behind me from Shanghai. He's like, I'm like about 193. He's about 30 centimeters taller than I am. Yeah. So but definitely I am way taller than my peers, way taller. Yeah. So that always stuck out, and I feel like there's always eyes on me, and as a result, I'm always self-conscious.
Yeah. And particularly this sensitive to vanity, because I did notice throughout the book as well a particular attention to how people looked, how they presented themselves, which is commentary on vanity at the end of the day. So do you think you're particularly sensitive to it?
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. And then I talk about, getting introduced to brands when I was, 17, 18? Yeah.
And when you were then dealing in China, did you also take that particular sensitivity to vanity into your deals? Like you always made sure maybe you were the most sharply dressed, most well put together, and you also noticed in others when they had those qualities as well?
It definitely, I would say that. So I do the Beijing airport project. I build rows and rows of warehouse. I actually hire people to do graffitis onto the warehouse. I said, well, that would be interesting. Maybe I do enough of it that we can be a movie scene. Right? People will come in because there's rows and rows of warehouse and with graffiti all over. That's an interesting scene. So we did that. And then obviously the Bulgari Hotel. Enables me to bring a lot of different things into it.
How important is vanity in doing business? How important is it that you do come well dressed, put together?
Because everybody have a different definition of vanity. What's your definition?
I would say being not a hair out of place, clothes that fit, clean. I would say that would be maybe the definition that I'm coming from. But I wanted to ask you, from your experience, how much of a soft skill or soft influence has someone's appearance been in the deal making? That's more what I'm trying to get to.
I think, everybody plays to their, everybody should, try to play to their strengths. And then in my case, because my height, my look, and then obviously then I put that on, it leave a lasting impression on people. People, people never forget the ones they have met me. Whether what can they lead to? Maybe it lead to something, maybe it doesn't. But that you are really sort of a step ahead of the game so far, so to speak.
And you were very conscious of that to use it to your advantage.
I thought that's I'm not fully conscious of it. But then I definitely I mean subconsciously I'm fully aware of it.
For instance, there's another detail with, I forget his name, but he was the airport boss.
Oh yeah.
He yes, exactly.
Yes.
But you made a comment that he, again, like noticing the vanity. He wore a suit two sizes too big. He wore the short sleeves in the summer, the long sleeves in the winter, the same color suit every day. Wasn't necessarily put together. And I was thinking there was like a really interesting commentary there between the totally Chinese bureaucrat versus maybe the more conscious international businessman who's trying to do deals.
Yeah, I guess, my brand being my brand, their cases are, the way I put it, it's also, I mean, obviously today if you look at Xi Jinping and his gang, they wear this jacket, right? And that's the standard issue right now, the Mao suit of Xi Jinping. But at that period in time, in the 90s and then 2000s of China, everybody actually wear a suit. And then it is almost standard issue. They wear suits 2 sizes too big. And I don't know why, but it is almost the way the bureaucrat always dress like that. Nobody dress like fitted suit. I don't understand why, but so put it in there also bring sort of the scene to life.
Is it like almost a subtle signal to working class values? Like it's a status way to say that actually being super well put together isn't the value?
No, I think multiple issues. One is I think it's wearing suits a new phenomenon for many people. When I first went to China, we were still at that stage. You buy a suit, if it's a good brand, you keep the labels on. Seriously, you got people walk around with labels on the sleeve everywhere.
As a way to show their status.
Yeah, as a way to show I have a good brand of suits I'm wearing, right? And so I think it's at that stage of development in China, everybody just wearing a suit's a new thing for them. And then they usually are overweight, the bureaucrats, and with all the whining and dining, we're probably going to talk about it later on. And so fitted suit just doesn't appeal, and then it's not comfortable. And a lot of them are, in particular, a lot of them actually coming from, you think about how different China was. I mean, they grow up in a very, very different China. And all of a sudden, in the 90s and 2000s, they become like super powerful and super... they don't, probably in the first 30 years of life, how many foreigners, like international tourists or international anybody they have met in their life, you can count it by a single hand. And all of a sudden, they probably, having 5 appointments with international businessmen in one morning. Just that's how fast this distance they have traveled. And for them to put on a suit, it's like, let me just get something like comfortable, right? And so 2 sizes too big, it's easier for your body to move around in.
Did you ever hear or read of The Status Game by Will Storr? He's a journalist in this country.
You mean UK?
Yes, UK. I would highly recommend it. He uses particular anecdotes from China. For example, how shark fin soup was such a popular dish because it was seen as a dish you would eat if you had money and you were sort of elite. But then subtly changing the status from eating shark fin soup to it was a food of the commons, saw shark fin soup plummet and people eat less of it, and therefore less sharks getting their fins cut off. Just as an example, you're talking about grown men walking around with the tags on their suit just to signal their status. I couldn't help but through the entire through your entire book, again and again, just be hit on the head with this very, very with the status signaling that was so rife.
Yeah. It is. I think it is. Well, I mean, one is it's in a novel-rich society. That's one part of it. I think culturally, you look at Asian. I was with a friend who run one of the biggest fashion brand in the world a couple of weeks ago. Talking about if you look at all the major fashion brands, close probably 50% of business are in Asia, right? And then China is generally account for 30% of luxury business industry in general.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It's by far one of the biggest.
How much does Louis Vuitton and all the luxury goods have to thank the Chinese wealthy for their exceptional rise in the last 10 years?
I think it counts the majority of it. I mean, my friend gave me some, and I wrote on my Twitter. My friend gave me some views about Chinese luxury consumer. Very, very interesting. I mean, he said one is China is a religious society, but atheist, because the communists destroy all the religion. They want to be the religion, right? And he said that's for a luxury brand, that's perfect because we want to be the religion. So he's talking about China as being like a perfect fertile ground, and then for luxury brands. And the second thing is Asian and Chinese in particular, they are very competitive, so very status conscious. That's the second thing. The third thing is China, tradition is lost, because he's comparing to the Japanese. Japanese, it's rife with traditions. So, he said, the rich Japanese don't necessarily need to buy another bread to signal their status. They wear the hand-down kimono. But China have none of that. So they keep buying, different, they need another bed to keep buying another bed to signal their status. And so you see, so China is, it's a fertile ground, but we're sidetracking. But anyway.
No, but that's a really fascinating insight from your friend there. And obviously it's...
Yeah.
Do you have a sadness for the lost tradition in China? Is there a part of you that longs for it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things, there was a period of, before Xi Jinping, from 2005-ish to about right before Xi Jinping, 7-8 years. If you look at China, there's a lot of NGO popping up everywhere. Obviously, we did one of the earliest one. A lot of it is trying to revive Chinese tradition, and those are not jobs government will do able to do it well. A lot of it is that, and then you start seeing there's a lot of culture part of things is being revived by the society as the society gets more affluent. And sorry to see that not happening anymore.
And why is it that you lost the old traditions and culture in the first place?
Oh, everything. You look at Cultural Revolution, it's what's the purpose of Cultural Revolution? It's wipe out the tradition. The Mao's idea was wipe out the old China and we're going to build a new one. So everything, right? The family tradition, the Chinese always have the shrines. So the ancestor worshipping, and we don't allow China. It's not particularly like having Catholics or Protestants, but it is a sort of ancestor worshipping. It is, and it's like not like disgracing your ancestry, and that kind of thinking is very much in China. So the family shrines actually is a big part of things. to see all that is destroyed. It destroys. It brings a lot of down.
Is there any hope that China could recapture some of its lost tradition?
The party doesn't want
I
it.
think it's too far gone.
It's too far gone now. It's 3 generations, since the Cultural Revolution, and the party doesn't want it because they want, it's what it just happened this last 2 days, right? They passed this law of patriotic education. It's what's patriotic education, and it's not patriotic education for students. It's patriotic education for the entire society. That was the law. And when you're doing that kind of, where is the place for tradition and culture?
So we're skipping a little bit ahead between your swimming and hustling to get to an American university. But looking back now on your days in Wisconsin, how formative of an experience was that?
I think it was, for me, I think it was also, so when I was in Hong Kong, and we just talked about earlier that I stand out from my peers. As a result, I am more individualistic compared to my peers in Hong Kong. And I think it's the opportunity to study in the U.S. further enhance that. So like give me I'm living by myself, my parents are out of the way, and it gave me the opportunity sort of more to be more independent, to have my own views and willing to take, American culture is all about taking risk, right? And so all of that has a big impact on, I think has a huge impact on a lot of choices I've made the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. The idea of taking risk mostly.
Yeah. And I have, people see risks. I see like, okay, say, well, where's the opportunity around it? Yeah. It's just a different way to look at things. And
do you think maybe people were far more conservative about risk taking in Hong Kong or China? Because maybe there was less of a...
Well, on about China, it's a very different topic. We can talk about it separately. But in general, yeah.
Definitely, okay. Also, this is a quote from the book. You said that the more you studied, the more you realized that the details matter. Yeah. So I was hoping you could give an example of how that insight has served you.
Well, when I was growing up, I'm kind of more the guy that I don't like details. I don't, and I am sort of sometimes mindless of details. But I get more and more, studying and also working the real world, I start realizing detail matters. And especially I talk about a lot in the book is when I interacting with Chinese bureaucrats, it's like detail not just matters, details kills.
Give us an example of that.
Oh, you say you mince one word wrong, one sentence wrong in like interaction with a bureaucrat you newly met. That could be the end of a relationship. And then when the end of the relationship could mean the end of your project. So.
And do you have any real life experiences or anecdotes that you've heard of where that has exactly played out?
It happens every day in my life. I it is it's like like the book I talk about when I first met Auntie Zhang, right? She was questioning me this and that. If I as I also talk about like if I don't pass the exam, that was the end of the relationship with Whitney, and that will probably change everything. We probably wouldn't be talking today.
And so how did you know when you go to that dinner? Did Whitney prepare you? Like, this is the type of stuff Auntie Zhang is really... And it's Auntie Zhang, right? That's her nickname, Auntie Zhang, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Not nickname. We actually, that's what we call her.
Okay. So, but Whitney's preparing you because she knows how crucial this interaction is. And the context here is that basically Whitney goes on to be a wife, and this was a extremely senior member in China, Auntie Zhang, who
His wife, the premier of China.
who Whitney wanted the approval of, or needed, in fact, the approval of if she was going to marry you. Anyway, so is Whitney preparing you for this dinner? And are you almost sitting there nervous, almost like a job interview, thinking, I know if I step 1 foot wrong, it's all over? Like,
Essentially that. Yeah.
so, okay, so she asks you, like, I don't know, Desmond, why do you talk to me about swimming, for instance?
Yeah, she asked me about my background, my family background, my education background, it's like a job interview. There's sort of all this background question on background.
And is there room for you to be charming as well, or is it very sort of serious?
No. She was quite easy. She was always quite easygoing in sort of her demeanor, in that sense.
So you could be charming. You could maybe, tease her a little bit, or tease the Hong Kong people a little bit, or tease fellow swimmers.
You don't do that with people you newly met in a sort of the we call in China. Yeah.
I mean, for me, and I'm sure for many people who read your book, it's these subtle details of how you learn the cultural minutiae, or how you learn those little subtleties in how you behave with other people, that makes it so fascinating. Is there any other way from just experience and being, like you said, having extreme attention to detail to be able to get through it? Or there's some people that are so naturally predisposed to it?
Nah, it's really a learn through experience, and it's just not detail. It also to look at what detail. I mean, what detail you look for, right? What are the signals that you are looking for when you are in that kind of situation with that type of people, and what kind of signal you want to send out. It's all about signaling. It's in China, because the fundamental. I mean, I think it's helpful to point out the fundamentals. The fundamental of things is China is not necessarily lawless society, but law is liberally applied. You let's say you have a traffic accident, you kill somebody. You could be spending 10 years in jail. You could be spending 5 years in jail, or this accident could have never happened. And that's what China is. I mean, there is a law, and you kill somebody, there is something going to happen. But it could be anywhere around this spectrum.
If you know someone.
If you know the right Guanxi, right? And so people say China is about faith and Guanxi. The reason it's all about Guanxi is because there is no law, yet you can go to as a last resort, the last recourse. And so what can you depend on? The only thing you can depend on, human-to-human relationship in China, we call Guanxi. That's only so we always are judging on how much Guanxi I build with you, what's the depth of the Guanxi, how I can use the Guanxi, and how the Guanxi can apply in what situation. So we are always making judgment on that. And that's and you listen to it, it's a very fuzzy, fluffy, human to human. There is no hard law to it, right? But the bottom line is that because this is a country, law is liberally applied.
So inherent to the Guanxi is this political capital. But is there also this sense of fakeness between you and someone else you're trying to build this political capital with? And does that also affect the Guanxi? Like, if you're an extremely likable person who people like to have around, is that really good for your Guanxi?
Oh, obviously well.
Or is it all just down
not
to favor
really.
for favor?
Depends.
What can you do for me?
Well, depends.
It's
I mean, I
fake.
guess, have a likable personality is always help. I mean, it's just human to human.
Sure,
We are talking about, But it's not simple like that. It's not likeness. It's like, if somebody who is really popular, I'll give you an example that so we always dose out favors, right? We are in the book I talk about, giving out like $10,000 US watches. But even for that, we look at who to give out to. And it's like, if that person, it takes watches from everybody, let's say, then I wouldn't give it to him. Because or he takes money from everybody, I don't want to associate with him. Because he's bound to make a mistake somewhere, make the wrong association somewhere, and he's gonna fall. And I don't want to be dragged by him when he falls. So it is a judgment call all the time.
And so it sounds, famously corrupt, right? There might be laws, but basically it's determined by political capital how much they apply to you or not.
Yeah.
After the Xi Jinping's anti-corruption campaign, do you think the country has become more corrupt, where Guanxi matters even more, or it has gone more towards a rule of law, where there is a set of laws that you have to follow?
First of all, anti-corruption campaign is a misnomer and a misconcept, a wrong concept. The Communist Party is corruption, because when you have no independent judiciary, no freedom of press, political power trumps everything, you always have a corruption. So the Communist Party, like the day they set up, they took over the country, 1949, in October, right? And the National Day is October 1st, right? So 1950, they set up an anti-corruption agency. So corruption is already an issue. In the 50s, they arrest tens of thousands of people for corruption with a much, much smaller country and a bureaucracy. So this thing's always almost a decade or so, that's going to be a cleansing, because there's so much corruption is clogging this machine. It's not working smoothly anymore. So so even in Hu Jintao, the predecessor of Xi Jinping, during that 10, 15 years, they arrested about 1.5 million people. Not to the, Xi Jinping arrests something like 5 million now. But it's not like, so this thing always happens. It's not like it only happened with Xi Jinping. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when you don't change the system, the three things I talk about, no freedom press, political power trumps everything and all that, you always have corruption. It's just the game that now has changed. A different set of people comes to the top. A simple thing is like the party. It's stated in the constitution in China. The party is above the judiciary is belongs to the party. So can you arrest Xi Jinping? Obviously not. What about his wife? Is she touchable? Then the next question: what about his wife's brother? Is he touchable? What about his wife's brother's wife? What about their son? It just cascades down from there, right? You can see, right? And that's talking about the Beijing and the center of China. What about in the province? Can the court in the province arrest the party secretary of their province? What about a court in the county? Can the county court arrest the party secretary of the county? It just goes out from there. You can see immediately. Right, and then it's you don't change the structure, the fundamentals. This thing never change. It just, people change, scenery change, and it come back with a vengeance.
Give Guanxi a definition to the audience. There's no English word for it, but explain beyond the examples you've already given, if there is some sort of definition you can give to someone when they ask you, hey Desmond, what is this Guanxi you're always talking about?
I think at the most superficial level, it's just human to human relationship. And then you go deeper into it, it's the depth of the relationship and what can you derive from that particular relationship.
The value of the relationship.
Value. I don't know about value, because value you sort of you put the dollar sign on it. You could lead people to think, but it can mean everything, right? You can get me into a school, get my kids into the right school, get my wife a right job, get me a traffic accident or just kill someone. Mm-hmm. It could be everything.
Okay. Now we've got the definition out of the way, and I think people can understand it as well. It's something almost universal obviously, but just how effective it can be depends on the economic system you're operating in. Obviously, in China, it's extremely effective. I know that in Mexico, it's really effective. Like, I have a mate who's practicing this Guanxi all the time. But okay, so in the United States, in Wisconsin, are you noticing differences in the Guanxi, the way you foster and develop a relationship? Or are you too early in your life to be thinking about these types of things?
No, I wasn't in that game when I was in Wisconsin. Yeah.
What about since? So you've lived in the United Kingdom for a while. I'm sure you've done business with many other cultures. How can you measure the difference in Guanxi between doing business in China and doing business in other cultures?
The fundamental difference is as I said, in China, law. I mean, everywhere else, in the West or in the developed world, ultimately you can resort to the courts. You can resort to the judiciary, and then trying to get an arbitration. Say, well, who is right and who is wrong? Where is the line between black and white? But the situation in China is, I would say, there's no black and white. It's just different. We talk. What's the book? 50 Shades of Grey. It's similar to like that. It's everything is great. It's just because supposedly if you have independent judiciary, then you have a black and white. The line could move, but there is a line. But in China, there is no line. It's all gray. And so Guanxi is what you like. How much I can do anything essentially, right? In that area of gray.
So in Sweden, maybe I am trying to, lobby the government's tick of approval for some big deal that I'm working on. And I can develop as much Guanxi as possible. But at the end of the day, no matter how good of a relationship I have with the decision maker, that's not enough to just get the tick of approval, because there is this whole framework of laws and legislation built around it to stop that from happening. Right. But in China, no matter how big the deal is, as long as your Guanxi is good enough with the decision maker, you can get that tick of approval.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which creates a system where there's going to be ridiculous income disparity. And it's going to be much harder generation after generation to filter that down into other opportunities for people.
Yeah. And then that's why, I saw, so the what was it? Gini index, right?
The Gini coefficient.
Yeah, and I think the U.S. is 4.7-ish or somewhere around there. The Chinese own research, I think the Academy of Social Science come out with 0.6 something. China has one of the highest Gini index in the whole damn world.
But that's coming out of China.
Yeah, their own research.
Okay.
Their own research.
Are you surprised that they would freely admit to having such a poor income distribution?
No, I'm sure it's censored now, but that was published.
Yeah. This was a quote taken from Foreign Policy's review of your book, that the very wealthy in China have a habit of collecting talent. Ping pong players, calligraphers, fortune tellers, Buddhist masters, top university graduates, and Shum slotted right in. Can you give examples of this, where the Chinese wealthy are collecting these types of people?
What does that mean, collecting this type of people?
It's from the review of the book, and I assume it means associating with these people because it gives them a certain Guanxi, a higher status. I had dinner with this famous artist tonight. Look how important I am. That type of thing.
Then it's similar. Then it's no difference from buying the most expensive Hermes bag. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's just another piece of accessory onto my.
Another example of the status signaling. Yeah. You mentioned in the book how necessary these accoutrements of the extremely wealthy lifestyle was, which Whitney also partook in. Some of the high figures was a $15 million pink diamond that you sought out from Hong Kong, an extremely rare watch, which apparently Vladimir Putin owns a copy of, and you were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on dinners, So give us a sense for what your lifestyle looked like with Whitney when you're at your top of your deal-making powers.
In terms of how we spend money?
Yeah, what the lifestyle looks like.
I think that's well. I mean, it's it's at that age. There's several things. I instead of so basically money is no object, right? It is because we have seen our wealth grown so much so fast, and then you sort of expect that to continue. Then you basically you say, well, if I haven't tried it, I want to try it. If I haven't owned it, I want to own it, and sort of on that kind of trajectory.
What was the most ridiculous thing you ever spent money on?
Ridiculous things. I don't know. I mean, I sort of spend money on everything that at that time I can afford, or I don't really know what's ridiculous. I mean,
just an absurd experience. For example, I would say spending a couple $1 million to go to space would be a ridiculous expense.
Well, at that time, I thought, at that time I talk about in the book, spending €500,000 on a watch like 15 years ago. I thought that was kind of ridiculous, but my wife wanted to get me as my birthday gift for my 40th birthday, and then I was okay, fine.
Do you ever look back on that with longing? Do you wish you had that lifestyle still in a way?
No, actually, I don't. Actually, I don't think. I think I talk about it quite a bit in my book. What drives me? A lot of it drives me is curiosity. I was curious, and I've been curious. Like, if I can own that, what does that make me? If I own that, if I can own that, how does that make me feel? And then once you have been there, done that, then you're like, well, so what, right? I mean, now, Ferrari drive by, I wouldn't bat my eye because it's like, so what? I know, whatever, right? So for me, it's more. Everybody is different, right? I mean, but in my case, I was very much like after curiosity and experience. And that was driving me, and then so I've seen that, been there, done that. It's like, okay, whatever. To me, the more interesting thing is meeting. I'm meeting all these people in the world, right? The Rothschilds, like the Rockefellers, and it's like people, the names you come out of books, and it's like completely inaccessible, and then you can call on them, right?
And that was in the context of trying to plan for like family dynastic wealth, right?
Yeah.
Is it too personal to ask you about now how you think about your family dynastic wealth? Whether you're still trying to accumulate lots of capital to then pass on to your son, for him to as well understand that this is the Shum capital and how he should steer it? Is this still part of your life that you think about?
No, actually, very early on when I studying the subject, I realized it's not about money. It's about if you don't passing it right, you're passing poison to your children, and it's about the worst thing you can do to your children. The reason I went into study the subject was I was in London on one trip to London. I met this girl. She's like a Japanese Chinese mix. So her father is a Japanese, so her name is in Japanese. But her mom is a Chinese, so she actually speaks Chinese. So she was her boyfriend at the time was some real estate family in the real estate. And then she was telling me that their family sent him something like £20,000 a month, and then if he's not spending that, they will call like, oh, what's happening? What's wrong with you? Why are you not spending the money? And that kind of stuff. And then the very soon you can expect when you have that kind of free money to spend, you are surrounded by a cluster of like lotus, right? They feed on you. And then she was telling me because those people, because her name is in Japanese, they didn't know she can speak Chinese. And then they were talking about like, should we kidnap this kid, in the weekend? They're passing like prostitute to him. Like, these are really nice girls. You take them as your girlfriend. And then through the prostitutes, they try to control him. And then when I listened to those stories, I thought like, damn, this is, that's what sort of I first got an idea like, oh shit, if you don't get past the money, if you don't do it right, passing money to your kid is about because the kid probably very likely if he didn't do it right, he didn't know who to trust. He didn't know who is my friend, who is not my friend. He maybe not even, probably don't even know, like, my wife or my wife to be, is that for me or for my money? What's, you will be living in a sort of in a shadow of doubts your entire life of all the human relationship around you. And I don't want that to happen to my kid. And so that was my beginning of journey of trying to study that. So it's not about wealth.
Yeah, you write in the book, it's about passing on like a story, like
family legacy.
A family legacy, a reason to be proud of the name.
Yeah.
What is that you're passing down to your son?
It's because that the book is part of it. The book is actually part of it. I mean, I want to do the book. And when as I said, I first write a book not for publishing. I write a book as to pass to my son. And then subsequently various events lead to a publication. I don't want to, different rumors happen circulate online, like who his mom is, what we have done. And then I want to, clarify that for him, because I don't want that to sort of be a baggage he had to carry for his whole life.
You wrote in your Time interview how Whitney's disappearance has affected your son a lot more, or at least it's affected you too, but just you notice you're more worried about how it's affected your son. I wonder, that was 2 years ago that was published, how his relationship with Whitney and you speaking with your son about Whitney has developed since then.
Obviously he's growing up quite, he's 14 now, and he understands a lot more things now. And I think what happened is it helps him, like, I think Whitney, the book really, obviously, I think the book will help to release Whitney. So she's free and about within China, and then they can, my son can dial her up anytime, and then she's reachable. I think that's the biggest gift, because, I think not knowing your birth mom is like what happened to her. It's a big void. You create a big void within your heart. And not having that doubt, and having that doubt take away, then you sort of you can have your feet on the ground, and you can deal with their relationship. And how their relationship will develop over time is to be seen, because right now they don't have as I said earlier, they talk to each other maybe once a month, and people are like, oh wow, aren't they not talking like twice a week or something? No, because she haven't seen her in person since he was 7, or and that's half his life. He haven't seen her, and especially bulk of his conscious life, he have never met her. So I mean, psychologically, I think it's important for every person to know, like, my birth mom, is there and available, but really what relationship they will have, it's, I think, something still to be seen.
So Whitney had been disappeared for 4 years before the eve of the book publication.
Right.
She calls you clearly under duress and it asks you not to publish the book. She's since been released. What does she think about your book? Is she resentful to you for having written it, or like almost thankful because maybe it's gotten her released?
We never talk on that subject, because what happened was she called. Well, we only have I think we only have 3 calls at the time of my book release. The first call, she asked me not to publish, and then she second call, she like accused me, said, well, I'm what did you say? She said, I'm a commit a crime against the state. You are my partner in life, you must have too. I was like, well, give me the name of the crime. And she didn't do that. But then the third call, she just left a message on my on my phone, and it's just a charade of like slogans, like don't buy the hand that feeds you. Essentially, said you make money in China, you shouldn't slander the state and or the party. Just a lot of that. Not being patriotic and all of that. Since that call, and then I haven't talked to her.
You haven't spoken to her?
No, I don't. I mean, I just don't talk to her about it because that call she like condemn me like you're gonna go to hell for publishing this and for saying this and all that, and then what's the point? We can't really have. Well, first of all, I think I mean she's fully aware of it. Also, her calls are being monitored, and so you can't really have a real discussion. And I never know like that kind of message she left me. Is that what she really believe, or is that she doing that to protect herself? So it's showing it to the party that see, I'm a loyal subject. I truly believe what you told me in those 4 years, or I don't know. Or she really hates what I'm saying. This thing, So I don't know actually, and I can't have a discussion, like a truthful discussion about it, right? So over the phone with her. So so I don't talk to her these days.
That must be really tough. I mean, she was your business partner, life partner. You share a child together. Like, how much do you wish you could just sit in a room with her, with no one watching, and like fully debrief the last 5, 6, 7 years? Actually talk to each other.
No, actually, I'm not looking forward to that. I mean, that's a reason we divorced.
Sure, but still, I can imagine, aren't there questions unanswered and things unsaid?
That's a lot of questions unanswered.
Right.
And I don't think I will ever have an answer.
Right.
So because they would probably, I don't know when they ever gonna let her out. And then if she cannot be out of China, I don't, you would always be fearful of what you may unconsciously lead out.
Sure. And your boy, does he take an interest in China?
He has a lot of interest in China, but also I think he really dislikes it.
Yeah.
Well, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, for obvious reasons. And there's no chance you or him will, assuming there isn't huge political change, will ever go.
Yeah.
No
I mean, me, obviously, my son is like, there are dozens of, it's public news. I mean, there's dozens of American passport holder kids. They call it exit band. Yes, basically languishing in China because basically they're stuck there and then they cannot leave the country, and then the party didn't put them behind bars, but they're basically telling the parents of those kids like, you guys come back or those kids are not leaving China. It's happening right now.
Man, that's so frightening.
Yeah. So there's no chance my son will go touch ground or in Hong Kong or China, because the next thing I may get a call, I'm very likely going to call, it's like, well, he's not leaving China until you come back. And then what I'm going to do?
On Whitney, she seems like such a fascinating character for so many reasons.
Yeah, she is.
But you wrote here, direct quote from the book, that she was good at teasing out people's private lives. So we spoke about the Guanxi, just how important it was to not ever step foot out of line. So how did Whitney manage to do this, tease out people's private lives in a culture that is so sensitive to never let that happen?
Even when I was in Beijing, I actually made comments to friends. I said, she's the best Guanxi builder in the entire Beijing. It's and that's a big, as I said, that's a huge statement, right? Because the Guanxi defines everything in China, and Beijing is the capital of China, and then to label her the best Guanxi builder of the entire Beijing, it says a lot. And that's her skill set, and that's a specialty skill set, unrivaled. It's something.
Give us an example of her at work. What's an incredible time where you saw her practice these elite levels of Guanxi?
Well, she, one thing I talk about is she does read a lot, and then she go into a situation, and she will go into a dinner, and then usually this kind of things always started with a dinner, and then basically she used two skills. One is she obviously giving our relationship with the Wans and other relationship in the political community. We know details of where the politics is moving, who is going up, who is going down, and for what reason they are going up and going down. And then you spill some beans out of that will entice people, because we definitely know more than most of them. And they were like, whoa. And then because basically you're telling me I know the secrets of the innermost circle of the political circles Guanxi happening. And then if you want to move your career here, you want to get business done, you want to build some Guanxi with certain people, you want to know those sources, the secret of those sources. So that's one way to do it. The one thing you do it with. And the second thing is she does read a lot compared to people in general. And then she have a fascinating, really good memory. She memorized the paragraph. She memorized the line. She would drop those lines like, "Oh yeah, let me see, Montesquieu in this kind of situation actually say this," and then you quote to a paragraph, and then everybody just in awe. It's like, wow, like this woman is like, what the heck, how can she read so much and how can she know so much, and you put that together, it's a fascinating combination, right?
Yeah, that character in People is so charming. Did you ever hear of Christopher Hitchens? He's a journalist here in the United Kingdom. He died a while ago, but he was famous for just being terrifically charismatic and charming and everything. And he supposedly could recite entire paragraphs from books, from songs, from poems, anecdotes that he heard once when he was boozed, and he could just bring it to life like that.
Yeah.
And it is an incredibly powerful, charismatic tool.
Whitney has a skill of that.
Yeah. And something interesting you just mentioned was that you're trading in gossip. That's a big part of the Guanxi. But how do you balance that line between dishing out the information and not then having a reputation for someone who dishes out the information?
Yeah. That's a very tight rope you need to work on.
Oh my God, I can only imagine, especially when the consequences is
huge,
falling completely off the ladder.
Huge.
Yeah,
and that's why I talk about in the book. It's our mind is always working all angles all the time.
The most stressful period of your life.
Oh, by far.
Yeah. You talk about how you would lose your hair and it never came back.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah.
But then as well, multiple dinners a night, drinking all the time. The human body is not designed for this.
Yeah, sure.
You wrote that in the partnership between you and Whitney, you would be doing the due diligence, the political cost, and the legwork. I really wanted to ask you a specific example for how you would calculate political cost.
How would I calculate political cost?
With an example. if there is one?
Cost in the sense of like P&L cost, or in the sense
No,
of
political cost is in the Guanxi political cost. You would do the political. You would understand what is the political cost of, say.
So we'll so we need to get let's say we want to get some project moved. We, one of the person who were very close to us was head of like land approval or whatever in Beijing city. Then you very often, she was a deputy. We also have a relationship with the top dog. So, but she wants to move up. Then you're doing a calculation. Say, well, she can move out. She can move out. She's a deputy director general. She wants to get to be a director general, but she can move up. We can help her to get to a director general, but she needs to get out of the land bureau. But then the immediate our calculation is, if she's out of land bureau, what use does she have to us? We have Guanxi, so that's a cost. It's a political cost calculation going on. Yes, she's gonna be another bigger job, but not the job that can help us immediately in this particular business.
Yeah. When I hear you describe it that way, and all the Guanxi, it makes so much sense why people call the CCP just a mafia state.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So
I want to do. If you have a professor that's actually that's the subject I want to do a PhD.
Okay, which one?
Yeah, mafia and comparing mafia and the CCP.
Amazing.
But then I cannot find it. I haven't found it like professor who do it.
Because it's a risky thing to do.
I don't know actually. I mean, I that's one like specialist in Oxford University. I contacted him. It's CCP is not something I'm very good at, and I don't know. I don't know.
We'll find you an Australian university partner. Now, we are obviously missing so many details from the book, and the audience knows that they need to, read it for themselves. But specifically, you talk about the go-go energy when Deng Xiaoping came in. You talk about the immense opportunity that came to Beijing after they won the rights to 2008 World Cup. A lot of your massive economic windfalls happened.
2008 Olympics.
Yes, of course, Olympics, not World Cup.
Yes.
A lot of your greatest economic windfalls happened because of these, because of what I just said.
I actually related that. It remind me of something I wrote on Twitter like a week ago. It's fascinating. So between like me, obviously where I am, a book basically reveal my whole story. And that's this guy called Fan Bao or Bao Fan. His last name is Bao. And he was all over the newspaper like 2 months ago because he's the investment banker for the China's tech industry. And now he's languishing in jail right now since the beginning of the year. Not sentenced. It just sort of like disappeared for 4 months, and then the newspaper like globally broke out the story, said, well, this guy has disappeared for 4 months now, and then the state now said that he's under investigation, but he's like behind bars for 6 months, but not even having a crime indicted yet. And then this guy called he founded Sequoia China. And the three of us, it's very we are the same age, about the same age. We all know each other. We're friends in Hong Kong in the 90s. We all similar background. We started. We all educated overseas. First started in Hong Kong in the financial industry, and then the ride the wave of Sequoia is probably the most successful VC venture capital firm in China, and they make tons of money in the last 2 decades. I was in real estate, and I moved in a political circle. Bao Fan, where founded he is the banker for the tech industry, and then you have this guy who founded the most successful venture capital firm. The three of us, all ride a wave, and now today I'm essentially a dissident. Bao Fan is behind bar, and he supposedly is still flying high. Just like. It's like I think somebody can do a book or do a movie out of this thing, how this thing worked out in the last 20 years. But one thing I want to say is, you look at that is, one thing I always think is the tide lift the boat. The tide lift the boat. China has this saying: does hero make the times, or the time make the heroes? I truly believe time makes the hero, and then in our cases, the tide lifting the boats. Yeah.
And your biggest deals came from this tide lifting the boat, specifically the airport deal, the property deals. I just wonder if specifically it interests you to break down some of these huge deals you were a part of, because just for me, as someone really interested in business, I
always give an example like the Ping An Insurance. It made a New York Times story and broke open our relationship with the Wan family to the world. It's talking about the boat lifting role. So what happened was, essentially we bought the shares for about rough figures, or like $2.50 a share. And I eventually sold it at 60s. So I made about 30 times. Mm-hmm. And what happened? So when we first bought a share, in about, I think in the 2-3 years, so it was listed in Hong Kong at about $9.80 a share. If I could have sell, but China have capital control and all that. So I bought my share in China. I cannot sell. If I could have sell, I would at least recuperate some of the, take some money off, some chips off the table, recuperate my cost, right? But I can't. So it was. So we were locked in, and then eventually the stocks was listed in Shanghai at 32.80. And if I could have sell, I would sell an IPO. But then I cannot, because because as a major shareholder, we have a 6 months lockup period. And then in between the 6 months, the share went up to the high was 120 something. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, by the time I'm out of lockup, it's already come back down and sell everything at 60s. And then that's over a 5-year period, I think. Mm-hmm. But it's like, what did I do? People said, I think we put something like 10 million into it, and then we come out with like 300 million-ish. And people say, it's this incredibly corrupt. It's like, you have a relationship, you bought this share. The heck of it. It's got nothing to do with my relationship, bought a share. It's just the tie. If I could, first of all, when I bought a share, it was same transaction, same price that was transacted of Ping An Insurance share in the same year, at the same price we bought it. And then actually Goldman sell those shares before the IPOs, because they were trying to sell the Alibaba share. And there was no ticker. So they stuck with Alibaba, but the insurance company has ticker. They sold the insurance company share. And then we obviously didn't make the 30 sometimes we made. Yeah. It's just the tie. It's the time of China.
You do break down how Goldman also invested in Alibaba early on, and if they had held their shares through today, it'd be worth more than the market capitalization of the entire firm, I think, or something like that. Sure. One single investment. For sure. Okay, so that insurance deal was obviously incredibly profitable to you, but also you're involved in a lot of property, and then as well in this airport deal where you're basically running the logistics warehouses into and out of Beijing. So is there anything worth breaking down in there, or should we just encourage people to read the book and hear about it there?
Breaking down in how? I mean, what dimension? It's because I work almost like I work on 8 years on that project.
Yeah, more so the scale of it, and just how influential of a business deal this was for your reputation as a businessman, but then as well how it helped your Guanxi, and then as well economically how profitable it was. Those sort of details.
But the scale is massive. We have about, I think we have about 3 square kilo of land about the airport, and we essentially own the entire. We own the entire logistic operation of the airport. We built about 6 million square feet of property in my first phase when I did it. 10 kilo of roads and pipes and all that. And the site is good for about 18 million square feet. And then I sold it after I finished the first phase.
What did you learn about like China's role in globalization from the property development? Because I'm just imagining you would have your hands in all the details from, what are we buying the cement at? What are we buying the iron at? Is it coming from Australia? When's it getting here? Who's building it? Who are the contractors I'm going to be working with? How are we getting the permission to dig the pipes? Like for me, just the minutiae of all these details is extremely fascinating.
And then your question is?
In the details of that, did you gain an appreciation for China in and its position within globalization?
Oh yeah, we were
importing everything.
We were. I mean, that's the pure of China. Everything, everybody want to come to China. And you talk to. I mean, I talk to a lot of companies, and every board is about what. Every board is about what's my China entry strategy. That's what every board demands, right? If you're a CEO, you don't have a China entry strategy, you're out of job very soon, right? I mean, those are the years, and we were global. I mean, in the sense that we, doing that project, we hire Hong Kong Airport and Amsterdam Airport to advise us on because it's ridiculous to the extent I got a project. I have no idea like the warehouse how high the platform should be. It should be 5 feet or 5 feet 5. And the road between the warehouse, how wide it need to be. The grade of the cement on the ground, how tough it need to be, and I'm zero about any of that. So we hire all this firms around the world to help us, like tell us what to do.
Nice, yeah, but they're the cool like sort of minutiae details that I found really fascinating. But something as well that keeps coming up as a theme in the book, but as well you just mentioned it, the tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
You would have sold this insurance shares at $10, yet you managed to cash out at 60.
Yeah.
You say, this is a quote from the book, that luck lies at the heart of most fortunes.
Yeah, definitely.
So I as well, I know you,
because the world always talk about like almost like the guy who are successful people are the most brilliant people, and it's experiencing it, at least from my end, it's all BS.
And what about the role randomness plays in life? Do you have a broader philosophical thought about that?
Nah, randomness definitely play a role, but the thing is, I think if you're really good and you're really prepared, something gonna fall into your lap. But the question is, what falls in your lap? How big a pie it is gonna be? That has to do with randomness.
Are you familiar with the word serendipity?
Yeah.
Do you ever reflect on the role that serendipity has played in your life?
How so? Can you explain it to me?
Okay, so for example, it ties directly in with randomness, but say for instance, you happen to take up an interest in a certain subject. You happen to then run into a person who also has an interest in that subject. You get to talking to each other. It turns out it's a terrific Guanxi for you. And one day it will be political capital you can favor one day. You know, the random moment when you meet Whitney, right? And how that is a total divergence in where your life takes you. Maybe next week, you know, you're, I don't know, introduced to someone who, again, completely changes the path of your life. This is a serendipitous moment, but it's funny looking back how it's a finite experience of the past, but today we're looking at an infinite possibility of the future, and your past doesn't necessarily inform where you're going. So it's just this random walk if you reflect on it.
It's not entirely random, because I the way I look at it, like the moment, like, yes, you know, I could have run into Whitney, I could have never run into Whitney, but what make it possible for me to run into Whitney, right? Because, and why she pick me as a husband, so to speak. It's because my education, because my ability to sort of, I speak 3 different dialects in Chinese, and my look, man. It's a lot of it's not entirely random. That's why I say once you have to build your foundation, you have to prepare yourself, and something gonna fall into your lap.
Mm-hmm. Will you try and educate your son a little bit about optimizing for randomness, making sure that you're in a position, like you say, you meet Whitney, but you also have to be well enough put together to take advantage of that randomness that comes into your life?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So there was a Times article which revealed the relationship you had with the Wang family. Can you take us through the series of events between that article to then Whitney disappearing?
I'm not sure they are direct related.
No, they're not? Okay, maybe that's just my own assumption.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could tell us the series of events that led to Whitney's disappearance instead.
I think definitely, I mean, the New York Times article play a part, because it lay us open. As lay our relationship to open, and also essentially the entire world knows who you are. And then in China, you always want to be behind the scene. You don't never ever want to be open and then public like that, because the moment public like that, a lot of people can be coming for you, and you make yourself very vulnerable. So that, in that sense, the New York Times article definitely play a part. And also because, the relationship, it's like when I published the book, the publisher asked me, give us some pictures of you and Auntie Zhang. Actually hard for me to find one, because we don't take picture with her very much. It's because we want to lay low. And also, you a lot of times, I always joke, you go into some lawyers or some whatever business consultant's office, and they have pictures of them, with some Chinese bureaucrats, senior bureaucrats or senior politician, and essentially that's my certificate of validity to operate in China. But then they also, a lot of people look at that, and then I'll say, well, they're actually to people like us, we're like, okay, you don't really have a relationship. Right, because anytime you when you have real relationship, you don't publicize it. It's only the ones who does pretending to have a relationship go about and showing pictures. Yeah. And so once that completely that relationship is being publicized, that essentially kills the relationship between us and the Wens. Mm-hmm. And so yeah.
And then the series of events that lead up to Whitney
being disappeared. The other one is kills the relationship. But second, the other layer of it, you just get a double whammy. It's also, people say if you go after her, you are essentially going after the Wens, right? And so it's people have there is a political purpose to it, and then also you are known to know the secrets of the Wens. So going after you maybe proud something out of you about the Wens. So it's definitely the New York Times article has a link to it, but I'm not sure how directly it is.
Okay. These are questions a little bit away from the theme of the book, but I really want to know a little bit of the nuts and bolts of being a wealthy Chinese person. So, for instance, with the taxation, does everyone in some type of tax dodging scheme? How is income being distributed for the super wealthy in China?
The way to do it, well, one is you have income, you try to do income overseas. So they're not going to be taxed in the China tax.
What is the China tax?
I think even income tax can easily go up to 50-60% once you are over, let's say, I don't know, a few $1,000 US a month or something.
So everyone's tax dodging at the super wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. By one, hiding income overseas. What else?
Then not necessarily. Well, hiding is one way to put it, and also if you do transactions overseas, you're just not legally not taxed because it's not in their jurisdiction. Then the other thing is there's a lot of tax. They have many tax-free zones for different purposes. Some for technology, some for developing like backward country, places of the country, and then you go you get your company registered in those places.
Like Shenzhen.
No, Shenzhen is not. It's like Tibet.
Oh, okay.
Or those they have different their tax zones, many across the country, and then you just find out where they are and how you can register over there and all that. That's the way to do tax.
You ever spend time in the special economic zones of China?
In like what?
The SEZs?
Doing what?
I don't know. Business?
Yeah.
Tax-free business?
Yeah, for sure. We have company registered in those places.
Yeah. In where?
Or Tibet or this backward. Usually it's those backward provinces.
Was Tibet the water deal you did?
No, we don't do any water deal.
There was a water deal in the book.
That's not mine. That's some connected person.
Okay.
They shipping water. Well,
Yeah.
supposedly shipping water out of Tibet and selling on the railways.
Right. Obviously, Australia has a really close relationship with China. Not good most of the time, but China fueled enormous economic growth for Australia. And then as well, Australia is a place where a lot of Chinese capital flight escapes to. So I've never spoken to a person who would know about this world as much as you do. And it's a massive talking point, or at least topic in Australia. One, Chinese capital flight raising the median income of the housing district for people. Two, other types of money laundering operations. Three, influencing the way that the universities accept local students. Then as well, what the demographic makeup of a classroom is, and so forth. I went to University of New South Wales for a few semesters, and in my macroeconomics class, there were 2 Australian guys, and then like 35 Chinese students.
Yeah. But this is not just Australia, same as Canada.
But if you could talk specifically about whether your own dealings or dealings you know about, how wealthy Chinese would try to move money into Australia.
I mean, the 2 most famous incidents is one is Zheng Qinghong, the vice president of China. His son bought a house in Sydney, I think for 13 million Aussie, and then he took the whole thing down. He took the whole thing down to rebuild it.
Jesus. Okay.
So I think that's actually in the newspaper somewhere. I don't know how well covered it is, but it's in the newspaper somewhere. And then obviously that's a well covered story. I think was that they were the private jets of some Xi Jinping's relative taking money into the casinos in Australia.
But I mean, they're super high profile events. I'm more talking about still extremely wealthy Chinese, but not the top of the bracket, who are somehow getting money into Australia, buying Australian property, and flushing Chinese cash into Australia. Whether you have any anecdotes, experiences, know anything about it.
But what do you want? You want some like
I want
story?
it confirmed almost that this is something that happens, and this is how people talk about,
For
de-risking
sure it is
having
happening,
all
because
their
you
money in
just
yen.
look at the number of immigrants coming into Australia from mainland China. It's just that's pretty easy to look at.
Did you ever put money in Australia?
No, we have higher Australian firms who work for us, but we haven't put money into Australia.
And would the Australian firms who work with you act as a conduit to put money into Australia?
No, they were just designers. We were hired
What did you do with your wealth
in terms of
to de-risk it from it all being in yen in China?
we move it out.
Where'd
That's the
you
same
move it?
thing. That's the same thing. I don't want to talk about me in particular in that way.
Okay.
So, but that's, if you look at big picture things. I mean, that's the reason Hong Kong is the wealth management center of the world until Xi Jinping.
Because they were the people that would facilitate how the money leaves China.
Not facilitate. Everybody wants to get money out of. Everybody with money wants some of their sort of nest of egg outside of the CCP's control.
Yeah. Okay. And so you mentioned Hong Kong because a lot of people would just buy property in Hong Kong as a way to do that.
I'm talking about wealth management, so the UBS, Credit Suisse, and all these private banks.
And when you eventually left China, did you manage to secure a lot of your wealth outside of the country?
I move it out. I move it out the day I move. I sell everything in China and then move everything out.
And by sell everything in China, what did you do with that cash? How did you get it out of the country?
I move it out.
By the ways you said. Okay. Well, congratulations. I mean, that's a pretty good windfall, right? Because I imagine there's a huge risk for, a big part of the opportunity cost of leaving the country is you leave behind the value you've created.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one of the reason. I mean, I think Whitney lost all most of the wealth in China. They just took it.
Yeah.
Although no court case, no.
They just confiscated Whitney's wealth.
Yeah.
And Whitney was worth between $2 and $3 billion US.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What can you say about moving here to the United Kingdom? How much you are in correspondence with the government, the sort of security apparatus here, or do you just stand on your own 2 feet and sort of organize all of that yourself?
I do have contact with them, and they did reach out.
And so they're keeping an eye out if, say, there are threats to Chinese citizens in UK or specifically to you.
I don't know about what they do with other people, but I have contacts with them, and they have reached out, and then we have. Just example, my phone is registered with the police, so if I do dial in, I guess my line goes direct to certain, gets a priority call or whatever.
Same for your son?
Not about my son. I don't know, not my son.
Okay. Yeah. Do you feel ever like you might be disappeared yourself?
In where?
By
in
Chinese?
the UK?
Yeah.
No.
Wherever you are around the world, but is there a threat that behind you?
Yeah, because they have disappeared people many places. The UAE, obviously, famously, they kidnapped a Swedish citizen who is a bookshop owner in Thailand. So I don't go to countries that are very tight with this China. So I watch where I go.
So is most of Europe safe?
I don't go to Eastern Europe. I don't. I mean, I for a while, and now I'm like more relaxed. When a book first came out, I look into the Interpol because they have done that. Obviously the Interpol for the head guy of Interpol for I don't know, but now it was a Chinese, right? So
US. What about Latin America?
No.
No.
It's a lot of country. I mean, basically,
Australia?
I turn around. I go around in a developed world. I mean, I don't go into like those.
Yep. Australia?
I think Australia is fine.
Okay. Nice. Specifically, the fallout from publishing the book. Do you know how it's been responded to within Taiwan? You just mentioned before we started recording that it's a bestseller there. Do you know if there's like a underground copy that's circulated throughout China?
Yeah, it is. I remember the book first came out in English. The moment it came out, people sent it to me. So they Google Translate it. They Google Translate it, and it was circulated with the Google Translated copy will start circulating in China.
Yeah. And do you know how it's been received by the Chinese?
I know it's very talked about in the dinner tables in Beijing.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, because the as I said, the system operate with like multiple layer of curtains, right? Certain people allowed to go through the first layer of curtain, certain people go through the second layer. So even people who are like a mid-level or even a senior bureaucrat, they don't know what's happening with the premier, right? It's all gossiping and rumoring. And then this is the time that, somebody came out of a book said, this is actually how I deal with the premier's family. And this is how I actually deal with the ministers. And then that's for a lot of people, even within the system, that's like, oh, wow, that's a life story I never heard,
Do you have any special insight or opinion as to what has happened to Jack Ma?
In terms of?
Where he is?
He is. I mean, he's now very much on news now.
He's back?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, I've missed this.
He's in China. He's in China right now, and then, yeah.
Will he be able to leave China, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. I mean, he basically, it's you should talk to Duncan Clark, if you... Okay. Because Duncan I just ran into Duncan like this week. Yeah, this week I ran into him Monday. I haven't seen him for a long time. And we know each other for almost 30 years. He's like the same batch, with in the 90s. He was at the time in the 90s. He was an analyst with Morgan Stanley, and then he went to China, Beijing, and then started a telecom and an IT consulting firm. He wrote an autobiography for Jack Ma. And then published, and I think sold well. And so he knows Jack Ma pretty well. If you want,
I should talk to him.
If you are very interested in Jack Ma's stories.
He's got a great story. It almost feels like it's too good to be true. This Australian guy helps him out along the way. I forget what was the role. He did something enormous for Jack Ma early on when he was a boy.
As I said, it's the same thing. I said, tie lift all boats. If you're I don't know the detail of it because I met him, I have coffee with him and all that. But early on when he first started, when he, I talk about in the book, when the first time he came out fundraising, I was a PE guy, a private equity guy, and then I sit down and I look at his deal. But if you look at the big picture of things, it's, I think I sat down with him in 1997, the first time he came out to raise money, and I actually turned it down.
Raising money for Alibaba?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I turned it down. It's quite interesting because, so we have a coffee in a Ritz-Carlton in Hong Kong, and then he said, the window of the cafe actually look out to the office building that Goldman Sachs is in. And he said, Goldman agreed to give me $5 million. I only want 3 from you. I didn't give a business plan to Goldman, so you're not going to get a business plan either. I was like, what the heck are you talking about? I'm like, how I'm gonna go back and explain to my boss and say we're not going to invest in. We're investing in this company. We're not a single stack of paper. It's like, what are you talking about? So anyway, that was the end of it. And But in between that 1998 and then the company really took off about, I think it's like 2004, 2005-ish. In between those years, he's almost bankrupt 3 times. To the extent he was applying credit cards for his employee, and the employee took the credit card to take out cash from the cash machine and pay for the company's expenses. To the extent of that. And then subsequently, obviously, first mover opportunity, but it also is because of protection from the Chinese government, because that's why Amazon cannot do it in China, because and then they essentially same with WeChat. Tencent happened because they were first started basically copying the messaging service from MSN. That's how they started, and then because they don't allow. First of all, they don't allow foreign competition into China. Secondly, that's no anti-competition laws. And they being the early mover, they basically doing honor monopoly practices, and that's how it rolled up.
So you could have been a seed investor, a majority seed investor in Alibaba.
No, well,
maybe
such is life, right?
No, of course, it's impossible to like, not impossible, but it's wrong to regret or say what if. But still, that's quite a fantastic detail of a biography. What do you think about China's demographic problem? Have you seen Peter Zeihan talk about this and other geopolitical commentators?
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
I think in the case not demographic being one of them. I think the heydays of China is over. Not even the heyday. I think it's the only way forward. It's down from here. The demographic being one of the causes.
Okay, and the other cause is political.
Geopolitical. Xi Jinping. Also the China model, the economic model, has run its course. Has run its course. I mean, it's the growth. I mean, even when I was there, even at like Xi Jinping first came to power, I was starting to see that return of all projects are coming down. Return of all projects are coming down, and then it is China's growth is just based on expansion of debt. They're using debt to fund more and more inefficient projects to pop up the growth. And then it has run its limit. So it's a multiple issue right now. It's happening all at the same time for China. So that's why I said things are only going down from here.
Yeah, no matter what way you slice it, it feels like a pretty dire outlook.
Yeah, you cannot find a
silver lining.
Silver lining in a big picture.
There is a lot more I'd like to ask you, but I think it would just be a bit selfish. You've been really generous with your time so far.
Okay, great.
How do you feel?
Good.
Okay, well then in that case, you said in the interview with Time that you signed your life away when you decided to publish the book. I just wonder, why were you willing to make that trade?
Because I was at that point, the reason first of all, I didn't write a book to publish. As I said, I wrote a book as a gift to my son. And then I decided to publish 2 years after I started on the project. That's why the book, from beginning to publishing takes a little bit longer than usual. It was because I was just really angry. I was really angry because I feel we do the best we can to be, in China context, a model corporate citizen. And I think we try to be better than most of them. And this is what happened to Whitney, because at the time Whitney, she could be dead for all we know. She hadn't been seen or heard of for years, and I just thought it was so unfair, and it's what's happening, just ridiculously bad for my son. That's why I said, well, the heck with it.
And what do you do now with your time?
I'm very relaxed. I spend a lot of time with my family. I'm a home cook for my entire family. I cook 3-4 times a week.
Okay.
I have a friend came over last night, and I cook for them. I have another friend coming tonight. I'm cooking, and and then I am. I still have a lot of this like media interest on me, the book, and also my view of China, and so that still takes quite a bit of time.
Well, I mean, Desmond, I can't thank you enough for, being generous with your time, agreeing to meet with me. It's
Thank you.
it's an amazingly interesting and fascinating book, and so, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.